Senator Ayotte.
I want to thank both of you for your service to the country. And Admiral Harris, I want to thank you for also visiting the Portsmouth Naval Shipyard. We're really appreciative of that visit. And to follow up on what I've heard you say today in terms of the gap of our attack submarine fleet and the needs that you have in PACOM, what role, first of all, does the Virginia-class submarine play in the importance of our supremacy underseas? And how big is this gap? We actually asked the Navy this morning about all of the combatant commands, and the Navy told us that there's only 62% of the requests for attack submarine support are being met right now. So what's the gap like in PACOM as well?
The gap's about 62%. The exact numbers are classified, and I'd be happy to have that discussion with you. But we experienced an attack submarine shortfall in the Pacific. And I would maintain that the Pacific is the principal space where submarines are the most important warfighting capability we have. As far as Virginia-class submarines, it's the best thing we have. It's the best thing we have. And I can't get enough of them, and I can't get enough of them fast enough.
Great, thank you. And I think this is the issue that you've raised as we think about sequestration, the long-term impact, our investment in our attack submarine fleet, which is so critical to the defense of the nation, and obviously an area where we have very important supremacy underseas with the challenges that we're facing in the region. But if we don't have presence, then we obviously can't address our security needs, and our presence in the region is probably as important as anything else. Would you agree with that?
I do, and if you don't have presence, then you better have reach, and that reach comes from submarines and aircraft and the like, and we need the new SSBN, the SSBN-X in the 20s, in the 2020s, and we need the new long-range bomber as well.
Mm-hmm. I also wanted to ask you about unmanned underwater vehicle R&D and what you think we should be doing in terms of conducting research, development, and fielding advanced unmanned underwater vehicles. Is that something we need to invest and focus on going forward?
I think we must invest, Senator, in advanced underwater vehicles and go forward with it. Not only in anti-submarine warfare and all the things that UUVs can provide us in that regard, but also in mine warfare to get after the mine threat that we'll face as a certainty.
How are we doing on that compared to, for example, China or other countries?
I think we're doing okay in it, but we need to do a lot more.
Okay, thank you. I wanted to also ask about General Scaparrotti. As we've looked at the actions of North Korea that have been discussed today recently, obviously the underground nuclear tests, the ballistic missile launching, how do you assess what they're doing right now? I know there's always a pattern of escalation and looking for an international response, but it strikes me that that Kim Jong-un is even less reliable, obviously, than his father. So where do you assess this situation, and what more we should be doing to respond? And secondly, what is the next, what is your prediction in terms of what we might see next from the North Koreans, or is it just so unpredictable from your perspective?
Thank you, Senator. First of all, I think Kim Jong-un has been clear that he intends to establish himself and wants to be accepted as a nuclear nation with a valid missile capability to deliver those assets. And of course, he claims he can do that today. He wants to be recognized as such. He said that despite international sanctions, that he'll continue to develop his nuclear and his missile capabilities. And despite our deterrence, as you've seen, he's continued to do so. So I think his calculus is, at this point, that those tests that he just conducted in January and February, that they were within his risk tolerance, that he could conduct those, and at some point in the future here, in the next 3 or 4 months, move beyond it, just as he has done in cycle of provocation and relaxation over time, which has been their norm. I do worry about his calculation being being wrong at some point, and that's when I state that that's what I worry most about. His view of the world is a very isolated one, and given the way that he leads in terms of the brutal nature of his leadership, I'm not sure that he gets a lot of good advice, or at least critical advice, from those around him.
I think you're pretty hesitant when you're around him to give any contrary advice also.
Correct.
That's the problem.
I think we'll see increasing tension as we go into this training period coming up here in February and March. I think what we should do is to ensure that our alliance is strong, that we maintain our deterrence activities that we have there, particularly our large exercises here. There's no doubt in my mind that he knows of our capability and believes that he can't, defeat it. And I think stronger sanctions are very important from the international community.
Well, excellent. We recently passed very strong legislation in the Senate.
appreciate
and
that.
I think that sets the stage for the sanctions piece. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.